Genuine question as an American, how does it feel seeing your tax dollars being wasted in such a capacity? I'm not going to lie. I'd rather have them be wasted in this direction rather than wasted offensively on Iranian soil or offensively in Gaza. We're used to it. There's not really anything you can do at all. I'd rather have Israel exhaust its capabilities. Good message. Israeli air defense saturating the air and failing to intercept one missile. Where are they going? There's one. No. What the fuck? Even the missiles don't want to be Israeli anymore. Well, they're American anyway. They're Tamir interceptors. They're ours. We gave it to them. Oh my God. Did the enshittification hit the Iron Dome too? Jesus Christ. What a reality. Dude, what the is this? God, dude, guy sends me, okay, from Iran, breaking news. Iran to test nuclear weapons inside of Israel, going, dude, yeah, dude, definitely. Iran actually has a fully Iran now has nuclear capabilities. They enriched it. They did it, and they're about to deploy it. Why do I know this? Because this account, A_M_R_M1 from Iran has decided to report it as such, and it's Twitter. It's Twitter, so it must be real. Heavy strikes against the hills in eastern Tehran over the last few minutes with a large fire seen burning. Yeah. That's a massive cloud, dude. This is in Iran. This is Israeli strikes in eastern Tehran. Haaretz reports, Israeli army sources say they need 1 more week to complete their target bank in Iran. Military believes it can achieve war objectives within that time frame. Officials say they have no intention of being drawn into a long war. Targets include Fordow nuclear facility. I don't know why the Israeli air defenses are failing this hard, but I also don't know why, if the Israeli air defenses are failing this hard, that Iran is not taking advantage of the situation. They couldn't get the iOS soldier to face the camera due to military censorship.
Were there any efforts to shoot down Israeli jets? What does Iranian air defense look like?
So when you ask about attempts, I will say that it's pretty obvious that the...
Oh, that's funny. Wait, why won't he show his face? I thought that what they were doing was fully legal. I don't get it. Why can't the Israeli Air Force pilot show his face on camera? I'm so confused. What's that about? I thought what they were doing was perfectly legal, perfectly valid, you know, facilitating a first strike against Iran, a totally separate sovereign nation out of nowhere. Why wouldn't that be?
Can you talk about those dangers? Were there any efforts to shoot down Israeli jets? What does Iran...
He's just shy. He's just shy, Chad. That's what it is.
Iranian air defense look like?
So when you ask about attempts, I will say that it's pretty obvious that the Iranian regime doesn't like the Israeli fighter jets flying over their skies, and they do have they have advanced their technologies on their side in the past as well as we have, and we've been practicing and training for this type of scenario. So what we have done in the first 24 hours is create that environment so that whichever surface-to-air threat we would face, we'd be able to make sure that our side wins.
Can you talk about those?
Dude's not even facing the camera. Yeah. Hey man, camera's over here, buddy. Buddy. I don't mean to embarrass you, but you're looking at your plane. He's just shy.
Those dangers.
Yeah, maybe he's blind and he didn't realize the camera was on the opposite. Sorry to be off topic, but have you seen this story? What? No. Evidence now suggests Gamboa is an anti-racist activist and punk rocker who has open carried to many previous protests without incident, and appears the 501 peacekeepers fired in the crowd without any probable cause. Oh, this is the story in Salt Lake City, right? One of the 501 peacekeepers just opened fire into the crowd and killed someone. No, not an anti-racist. No, an anti-racist activist. I read racist twice. I don't know if this is accurate, but it's explaining some of the Iron Dome. What? This is Sputnik, dude. Despite censorship, found this one. Whoa! I haven't seen this one before. I don't know where it's from. I don't know if this is new or not. Was the dude Chinese? This was the most psychotic text message I've ever read in my entire life. From Ambassador Huckabee, a text message that was sent to President Donald Trump. Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania to be the most consequential president in a century, maybe ever. The decisions on your shoulders I would not want to be made by anyone else. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there is only one voice that matters. His voice. You know Trump's ass hates this shit. This isn't even glazed because he's talking about God. And Trump does not give a fuck about God, bro. He is the Antichrist, okay? I'm willing to bet he probably read this text message and was like, ugh, this freak is texting me again. I am appointed servant in this land and am available for you, but I do not try to get in your presence often because I trust your instincts. No president in my lifetime has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945. I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes, ears, and voice, and to make sure our flag flies above our embassy. My job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post. Our flag will not come down. You did not seek this moment. This moment sought you. It is my honor to serve you, Mike Huckabee. Literally, not even 10 hours after this, security alert, U.S. Embassy, Jerusalem. As a result of the direct current security situation and ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran, the U.S. Embassy has directed that all U.S. government employees and their family members continue to shelter in place and near their residence until further notice. Given the security situation in compliance with Israel Homefront Command guidance, the embassy in Jerusalem will be closed tomorrow.
We are sorry. We never wanted this.
Okay, that's bullshit. We are sorry. We never wanted this. There's no shot anyone in Israel will be filming that and saying that. That's fake as... Stop sending me fake shit. God damn. Khalil, no. Let's see if there's anything new from this. No. The last one is the Israeli air defense is saturating the air and failing to intercept one missile. Genuine question as an American, how does it feel seeing your tax dollars being wasted in such a capacity? I'm not going to lie. I'd rather have them be wasted in this direction rather than wasted offensively on Iranian soil or offensively in Gaza. We're used to it. There's not really anything you can do at all. I'd rather have Israel exhaust its capabilities, feel defenseless enough that they can no longer continue doing a campaign in Gaza. Widespread internet disruptions hit Iran as state urges Meta app deletions amid war. Iran experienced major internet disruptions on Tuesday, which NBC reported were the result of a government decision rather than damage from Israeli airstrikes. A government spokesperson said access was restricted in response to Israeli cyber attacks as independent a sharp drop in connectivity nationwide. NetBlocks reported a nearly 50% drop in international internet traffic, while users across Iran described widespread dead zones and outages as high as 75% in some areas. According to Fars News Agency, Iran's Cybersecurity Command issued new restrictions banning officials and their security teams from using any devices connected to public communications networks, including phones, laptops, and smartwatches. Hearing him on as soon as he comes on, only till he, as you know he would, because he always does, inevitably says some bullshit liberal Zionist genocidal apologia, denialism, ultimate humiliation, Western leftist, textbook naivete passed off as graciousness and leniency. Are you spamming this about my commentary over Bernie Sanders' somewhat reasonable assessment over the fucking Iran situation from literally an hour ago? Are you okay? I'm using that as a jump off point to talk about a fucking... I'm using that as a jump off point to talk about the lack of moral clarity from any fucking Western outlet. Like, not even offering a moment. Okay, it was 15 minutes ago. I don't know. Time is passing by at an insane level. Sure, 15 minutes ago. That's still fucking 15 minutes ago. He said Israel has a right to defend itself. Do you agree with that as well? I'd rather if none of my money went to Israel. I mean, I agree. But seemingly, that's not happening. So I'd rather exhaust the Israeli defenses to a degree where they feel defenseless and therefore are much more careful and restrained and don't fucking attack innocent Palestinians, innocent Iranians. Anyway, the point that I was making with Bernie's commentary wasn't necessarily just about Bernie's commentary, but was instead about the lack of moral clarity, like even a fraction of moment afforded to someone saying a thing that like the overwhelming majority of Americans believe. That's it. That's it. And if your hyper focus is on Bernie Sanders at a time when, like I'm mentioning, even with my commentary around Bernie Sanders' take, is that there is not a single fucking American media outlet that is exhibiting this response. I don't know what to tell you. As an Iranian, one thing that I know with certainty is that a country that has been shooting and starving people seeking aid is going to liberate my people. Oh, there it is. We found friend of the show agreeing. There it is. There's an Iranian. He said it. He must believe it. He must not have said it sarcastically. The Khojar missile production complex southeast of Tehran has been struck by Israeli missiles tonight, causing a huge fire. Oh, that might be the reason for why there's so much smoke. Will any of the U.S. officials suffer the consequences of their actions? No.
On vulnerable points inside the installation, you might hit the ground. This is what you see in Israel, but it's definitely a threat. So, yeah, we have to be prepared to work against that.
And do you think it's something Iran would do the minute the U.S. gets directly involved?
I think so. I think so because that's what they've said. There's no reason why they wouldn't follow through once we do get involved. And so really, the longer we postpone getting involved, the greater the likelihood that the Israelis themselves will take out many of these assets that could threaten us. But as I read it, John, I mean, and I would be advising the president, don't make a decision until you have to. But as I read it, the silence from the White House after today's meeting, the arrival of the air bridge tankers, some other aircraft in, maybe Thursday, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday, we'll probably see a positive decision. Yeah. I think it's certainly leading in that direction.
The silence may very well speak volumes. What if Iran all of a sudden said it's going to shut down all enrichment at Fordo? Do you think that would be enough at this point to get Israel to stand down?
Well, not without some other assurances. So if they say that, then Israel, the United States, the International Atomic Energy Agency, we're going to go in there. We've got to see what damage is done. We've got to see what those facilities are. I'm not sure we know where everything is. And the strikes have been centered on Western Iran. They're not so stupid that they wouldn't put some stuff in Eastern Iran where it's harder to get at for Israel. So we don't know where those assets are necessarily. We haven't taken them out yet, so far as we know. And so there's a lot of work to be done. This is not a sort of make an agreement and it's up to you all. I'm sure we can trust you. Absolutely cannot trust.
Bro, this literally is the same as Israel claiming that hostages are the reason why they have to do a genocide in Gaza. This is the exact same thing. It's just a just cause. That's all this is. This is what they are using as a reason for why they must fucking strike and decapitate the Iranian leadership and destabilize Iran. It is merely a fucking ruse. Why? Oh my God. The fact that people are still entertaining this is so stupid. They struck amidst a denuclearization agreement, man. They struck amidst a denuclearization negotiation. It's the same thing. And the previous thing hasn't even ended. It's so fucking annoying. I can't understand how people refuse to recognize this. Like, does anyone still believe that Israel cares about the hostages? Does anyone even care about the hostages anymore? It's gone, right? Nobody even fucking gives a shit about the hostages. No one ever gave a shit about the hostages. They're still in Gaza. The Hamastages are still in Gaza. You know? Israel completely just dropped that. Fetterman on Kane resolution to set parameters on if the U.S. were to get involved in Iran. I'm going to vote it down. I really hope the president finally does bomb and destroy the Iranians. Just strap him to a fucking missile and launch him, dude. What are we doing? He's heavy enough for some kinetic action. God damn. If you're a real one, that's what you would do. You can even time it. You can even time it with your fucking son's birthday, like last time you tried to kill yourself. Asshole. He did do that. He literally tried to kill himself on his fucking son. That's like not even a Felix bit. That was a Felix bit. But it's close enough to reality. Fox News' Peter Doocy reports ODNY Tulsi Gabbard was left out of the meeting. We covered this. B-52 bombers. They're only doing a fucking... they're only doing a training is what they said. Trump truce. We already covered that. Oh, here's Brett McGurk.
Region is just enormous. It is so enormous. I thought the president's trip was the right thing to do, very successful. What's happening in UAE is extraordinary. Saudi Arabia, throughout the Gulf, everything was just talked about in this panel. And Iran has been a huge problem in this region for decades. And what has happened to Hezbollah and Iranian networks and Iran since October 7th sets conditions for a much more peaceful, integrated Middle East that we all want. And Iran is a spoiler to that. There's just no question about it.
Yeah, the Atlantic Council. Here is war criminal Brett McGurk talking at the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council, as you know, is a famous pro-Palestinian charity and not a right-wing war hawk think tank for the American State Department. You might be mistaken if you're, following this stuff from the perspective of drama and Girly Pop Nation style, Girly Pop Nation adjacent commentary. And you might have been misguided into thinking that the Atlantic Council is actually a 501c3 that aids the Palestinian population. You might have even fundraised for the Atlantic Council without realizing what you were fundraising for. It is not. It is a right-wing war hawk think tank that works alongside the American foreign policy establishment.
So what's going to happen here in the next...
Here is Brett McGurk, a genocidal warmonger that was perhaps one of Biden's most influential aides in continuing the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, speaking about Trump's policies so far and how impactful and good Trump's policies have been. His Middle Eastern tour has been.
This week, I think, or so, is potentially quite decisive. And if we were here 2 years ago, and the question was, hypothetically, what if Israel launches a massive air attack on Iran? Like tomorrow, what would happen? I think Halima would have said it's going to be all-out Middle East war and energy markets and everything else you can imagine. And actually, it's happening right now. Israel controls the skies of Iran. I mean, this is like, And I just have to say, I am proud of what the United States of America has done since October 7th, not without controversy. And these are hard calls. And they
Yeah, all the child murder, such a hard call for me. Brett McGurk, so unhappy about all the child murder that I sanctioned, that I aided in. Oh, man, I hate it. I hate it. Except I fucking love it.
should be scrutinized. But I'm proud of what we have done to reduce the risks of an all-out Middle East conflict, to significantly weaken Iran and all of these networks that threaten so many people, and to set the conditions for a far more peaceful, prosperous, integrated Middle East region, With that said, there are going to be spoilers around and terrorist groups around and extremists around, many of them funded and supported by Iran. But an Iran without the sword of Damocles of a nuclear threshold state is a much different.
Yeah, it was really hard. I wanted to kill more children, and, you know, there wasn't that much appetite from our Western allies.
Different problem. And here we are with potential to actually resolve that, at least for a significant period of time. I will just finish. I hope Iran finds a way to take a deal, the deal that the U.S. has put on the table. But if not, I think there's another way.
Yeah, the other ways are violent. I spoke to Middle East Eye earlier this morning.
How does it feel to be in the U.S. at the moment?
I mean, it's chaotic. It's the end times. It feels like we are living through a dying empire, and a dying empire is always going to do a lot of violent things in its last breath. So that's what all of this instability actually is. I think America is trying to desperately come to terms with the reality that it is no longer going to be the hegemonic superpower, that China has become a true global competitor and is slated to continue growing. And I think in that process, we're trying to do, to the best of our ability, we here in the United States are trying to pack up the entire Middle Eastern region finally. And that is going to, of course, be a tremendously bloody affair. And that's what's unfolding right now. We're just getting our ally or getting our extension in the region, Israel, to do tremendous damage. And hopefully, from the estimation of the State Department, of course, it's not my assessment, but the State Department hopes that they can potentially destabilize Iran enough and then maybe even implement a puppet state there so that they can move on to decoupling this oil-rich region from China as a major energy provider, so that they can weaken China's position around the globe.
End times. Hassan Piker, thank you for joining us here on.
This is a much longer. Video. I think it's like 30 minutes long, a 30-minute interview. But this is just one piece of it. Who was that? He was cooking. You can probably just play clips and vids from the past 8 hours because the things have not changed. It's true. I mean, this was earlier this morning. It feels like we are living through it.
So, President Trump, the peacemaker, from where you're sitting, how is that going?
It's definitely not going great. I mean, I never really believed that Donald Trump was actually going to be a peacemaker. I have a firm commitment to the theory that American foreign policy is uniparty. That's part of the reason why you're hearing Brett McGurk and even someone from the Kamala Harris campaign as recently as last week talk about how they are either directly aligned with Donald Trump in terms of how hard they would defend Israel or even trying to out. Why they shit all over your audio? They didn't. I just sound like that because I had just woken up. Flank Donald Trump in terms of how fast they would defend Israel, even though Israel has conducted this first strike against Iran amidst this Iran denuclearization negotiations that are ongoing. So yeah, Donald Trump was also a liar when he said he was going to end these wars. He said day one, Israel-Palestine, it's over. Day one, Ukraine, Russia, it's over. Now, of course, with respect to dealing with foreign adversaries like Russia, that's why is it fucking crackling the mic? A sovereign nation. It's a lot more difficult than to actually cause Israel to stop its ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. Israel is not only a client state, but Israel is basically an extension of American foreign intervention in the region. It's basically an American state. We give 70% of all the defensive and offensive weapons to Israel since October 7. Israel would not be able to do. Fuck, this audio is crackling. Hassan Piker is very insightful. Nice. Try compressing your already gated and compressed. They're compressing your already gated and compressed signal. Did you do this over Zoom? I did. That's what they have. They have Zoom. Yeah, I saw a commenter said, finally, an apolitical commentator.
Over Tel Aviv, at least one making impact and some fires that we saw, but no casualties reported by Israel's emergency services. And we're hearing from...
Wait, so the Iranian Revolutionary Guard says Fatah 1 missiles sent a message of strength to Tel Aviv's delusional and warmongering ally?
And then compare that to 200 on Friday evening, and you have
so they use some of their good stuff. We didn't get to see the impacts
in the amount of activity that we're seeing coming from Iran into Israel. Now, what that is a result of, we don't know. The Israelis are saying that they have decimated about a third of Iran's missile launch pads, so that may certainly be a factor in this. It may also be that Iran is trying to conserve some of its firepower while it waits and watches to see what the U.S.'s decision will be in terms of taking a more direct intervention. And that's certainly a question here as well, Anderson, that people are asking themselves publicly, Israeli officials seeking not to appear to strong arm or weigh in too heavily on this issue, with the defense minister Israel Katz today saying basically we're grateful that the U.S. is helping us in a defensive posture and not really pushing any further than that. But privately, clearly, Israel very much hoping that President Trump will make the decision to join in this operation against Iran. And to that end as well, we have been hearing reports from the Israeli Air Force and also from people on the ground inside Tehran of heavy explosions throughout the night as everybody waits and watches to see what the next few days will bring. And certainly, just to add last thing, significant that the U.S. Embassy is announcing it will be closed Wednesday to Friday. They haven't really given an official reason for that beyond saying in compliance with what the Israel Homefront Command is essentially suggesting. And some Americans have been reaching out to me as well, saying that they're stranded, trying to get home, and at this stage, the U.S. State Department not really in a position to help them, Anderson.
Yeah, Clarissa Ward, thanks very much. We'll check in with you throughout the hour as warranted. I want to check in with CNN's chief White House correspondent and anchor at The Source, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, is it clear what happened at the meeting in the Situation Room, what the president's thinking is right now?
No, we know it was a widely attended event. Anderson, we saw everyone coming to the White House and then leaving hours later after this meeting inside the Situation Room had wrapped up. It included the Joint Chiefs Chairman, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the Vice President, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. It was quite a heavily populated event, but obviously, you know, the president does have meetings regularly with his team inside the Situation Room, but this takes on newfound importance because there is a critical decision before him right now, and we don't know as of this moment which way he is going to ultimately come down on this, but we do know that he is leaning much more toward having the United States get involved militarily in this and potentially help Israel strike Iran's nuclear program and nuclear facilities here. And so that is a major shift from where the president was a few weeks ago, a few months ago, certainly, when he was ruling out this idea of getting involved in the Middle East and saying that he wanted to pursue a diplomatic solution instead. And of course, now he's grown increasingly frustrated with how that process went. And he's been impressed by how successful the strikes by Israel on Iran have been. And that is really what's contributed to the shift in his mindset that we're seeing. And I mean, you could see it in his Truth Social post this morning after we got back from that trip that was cut short to Canada, where he was saying that, you know, we know where the Supreme Leader is hiding. We're not going to take him out as of right now. A very obvious caveat that is, you know, not really exactly settling to the Ayatollah himself. And so when you look at that, you get a real view into what the president's thinking is. And we did last night on Air Force One because we asked him, Anderson, about reports that maybe he'll send the vice president and his Middle East envoy to meet with Iranian officials and try to get some kind of diplomatic talk back on track. He was pretty dismissive of that when I asked him about that. He said, maybe I will, but it didn't seem like that was any real feasible plan that was in the works. And so
he was also pretty dismissive of Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, when you asked the question, the important question, well, she just testified in March that the assessment of the U.S. intelligence community was that they were not, you know, on the cusp of developing a weapon. What do you make of his answer?
Yeah, and she did testify during that moment that yes, there's a lot of uranium enrichment that Iran has, more than any other country that doesn't have a nuclear arsenal. But she was quite clear in March that they did not believe that they were actively working on pursuing a nuclear weapon. The president just frankly disagrees with that. And so it was notable to hear him dispute what his top spy chief is saying. She told reporters on Capitol Hill today that they are aligned, they are on the same page. But I talked to a lot of White House officials who said, obviously, this is the difference in their views that is shaping out. She has always been a non-interventionist. That is very clear, in her testimony and in her appearances that she's made, even as the director of national intelligence. But it's central to the question here, Anderson, which is what changed and why now? Why do they believe Iran is closer to developing a nuclear weapon that could warrant potential U.S. military intervention? And obviously, you see the Prime Minister of Israel defend that. And there's a question of whether or not that is a similar justification that the president uses here.
Caitlin Collins, thanks very much. We'll see you at the top. Interesting side note. Tomorrow, the president is scheduled to have lunch with the chief of army staff of one of Iran's neighbors, Pakistan, which is itself, of course, a nuclear weapon state. And joining me now, the New York Times Washington correspondent Mark Mazzetti and Politico White House bureau chief Dasha Burns. Mark, based on your reporting, how aligned or not had President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu been on Iran in the weeks leading up to Israel's airstrike?
What do you mean? They're fucking, they're circle jerking.
4 hours.
Well, they weren't really aligned for weeks and months. Back in April, Netanyahu was pushing similarly for a strike. Again, as you know, Anderson, Netanyahu's been pushing for years for the United States to join Israel in a strike against Iran. Trump kind of beat this back. But then in late May, American intelligence agencies picked up what they thought was pretty indisputable intel that Israel was about to do this, and they were about to do it without the United States. And I think what's important to point out is that Netanyahu, since last fall, has felt very emboldened to go after Iran because he no longer has a Hezbollah threat of retaliation from Lebanon. Israel has hit Iranian air defenses. And the Iranian missile capabilities have shown themselves over the last year to be weaker than expected. So an emboldened Netanyahu meant that he could push Trump and even do an operation on his own with the hope that if by starting it, he could bring Trump in, bring the United States in to kind of, quote, finish the job. And that's kind of where we are right now about whether the United States gets directly involved, the Fordo bunker and other difficult targets.
I mean, I've been wondering how much the Trump administration is influenced by the weakness, the historic weakness of the Iran regime.
Bro, they just keep repeating over and over again that America, every single person on mainstream media keeps saying over and over again that America, of course, is going to get involved. It has to get involved. What are you talking about? We have to get involved. We have to shoot the Fordo nuclear facility down. And the only way to do that is with bunker busters.
A pretty clean and successful, at least first day of the operation. And Trump started calling around and sort of saying how much the U.S. actually behind the scenes was involved. Now, that's one thing, right, to say that. The other thing is to then get directly militarily involved with American lives on the line, which is what he's now pondering with direct U.S. military airstrike. So this is there is this, war for the president's mind on this issue, right, within his circle of advisors about whether the United States should take this step, something that he said during the campaign he would avoid.
Yeah. Well, Dasha, to that point, is it clear to you who has the president's ear on this and to what extent he's listening to that advice? Because clearly it does seem, I mean, I know DNI Gabbard said they're on the same page, but it's certainly based on her testimony, it doesn't seem like it. And he's sort of brushed aside that to Caitlin Collins.
Well, there are a number of factors here. Number one, there are a lot of voices in the president's ear, and he is somebody that with big decisions like this does like to call around and does like to hear a variety of opinions. You also have a lot of people who want to seem like they are influencing the president. So we've been very careful in our reporting to try to parse through who is actually influential and who just really wants to be. I will say the folks that are talking about the U.S. getting involved in regime change, as though that is something that is very seriously on the table right now, are off base, at least for the moment, from what I'm hearing from White House officials and allies. Regime change is not something that is seriously a discussion. However, taking out Iran's nuclear capabilities and the U.S. getting involved in that is something that folks are open to. And some of the sources I've been talking to have been traditionally staunch isolationists. They were in support of President Trump because he was promising no new wars. They're now pointing to way back when the president first launched his campaign in 2015, saying, remember, he was talking about preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons at all costs even back then. So maybe we forgot how serious he is about this issue. And again, the fact that these are kind of staunch America First people who are now recalling this and pointing to what they say has been a consistent position from the president on Iran for a decade plus, that is really telling as well here, Anderson.
Dasha, does it seem to you that the president has been essentially kind of, I don't know, if outmaneuvered or just maneuvered into this by Benjamin Netanyahu? Because certainly he was planning on having further negotiations, and then Israel launched this strike, and now the U.S. position seems like it's about to change.
Here's what I know from sources. He wanted a diplomatic solution. He felt like he could use some art of the deal tactics to make it happen, and he wanted more time. He did not want Netanyahu to strike when he did. But then he did, and then his hands were a little bit tied, and now the options on the table are different than what they were even a few days ago. Even over the weekend, there was conversation about some of the rhetorical threats that the president was posting being more threats to bring Iran to the table, see if he could call their bluff, vice versa. But now it feels like the White House is seeing that the diplomacy might not be possible anymore at this point, given the images on your screen right now.
Yeah, Dasha Mark, thank you very much. Appreciate both of your reporting very much. There's a lot to get to throughout this hour. Coming up next, let's see, I want to go to... we're going to have more reports from the region, but I want to bring in Senator Chris Murphy. Air defense is in action a short time ago in Tehran, as we showed you. The Israeli Air Force says strikes on the Iranian capital are underway.
Let's see what Chris has to say. He's going to have a reasonable middle-of-the-road position.
Where do you stand on where the U.S. is now and what may happen, it seems like, from this administration?
Well, I think what you heard in the reporting just now is an indication of how weak the U.S. hand is here. Clearly, President Trump did not want Israel to take this action. We were literally in the middle of trying to find a diplomatic solution. The United States had enormous leverage, and Donald Trump is so weak in the Middle East that the Israelis essentially ran over him, and now we are speeding towards a war in the Middle East that the American people don't want. The fact of the matter is there was a diplomatic path, and there potentially still could be a diplomatic path. But anyone who is cheerleading the United States into a war with Iran has very quickly forgotten the disasters of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, where there were early tactical successes, but it became a quagmire that ultimately
finally
got
Democrats are like, hey, by the way, this reminds us of the Iraq War a little bit, don't you think?
US interests and against our allies in the region. So I do not think there's support in this country for the United States to go to war again in the Middle East. And I would remind the president that he can't take any offensive action against Iran without coming to Congress first. He has no leeway here.
This is the first time mainstream media is having a contentious voice against Trump from the Democratic
because there is
Party.
Opposition on both the Republican and Democratic side to the United States getting dragged into another potentially disastrous conflict in the Middle East.
How worried are you that Benjamin Netanyahu is maybe not just out for trying to eliminate the Iranian nuclear program, but regime change? And obviously the history of, what the U.S. has tried to do in terms of regime change, both in, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, has always had unintended consequences.
Well, that's exactly right. And whether or not Israel says that its intent is regime change, the nature of these strikes prompts the potential that this government will fall. And potentially replaced by an even more dangerous regime. So this is a really dangerous business to get into. And once again, we should be making decisions based on what's good for U.S. national security. We do not have any obligation to follow an Israeli decision that likely has more to do with protecting Netanyahu's own political situation back home than it does with protecting U.S. national security interests. So this regime in Tehran is dangerous. It is dangerous to the United States, but there are potential follow-on terrorist-led regimes that could be even more cataclysmic for our interests. We just have to have our eyes wide open as to the mess that we may be creating.
So what do you think the administration should do? I mean, do you think they should use the weapons that the US, only the U.S. has?
Doesn't know how to respond to like super basic commentary.
That's a mistake.
I think that's a mistake. I don't think the United States should get involved in another war in the Middle East.
You
and we
didn't
should
say
just be
Israel
very
hype,
clear that
Senator.
there
What do
is
you
a
mean by
limited
this?
amount that we can do, even with air power here. Our forces in the region are very exposed. We don't obviously need to talk about classified information, but it is open source reporting that we don't have adequate protection on many of our forces in the region. And so right now, Iran has not decided to strike at U.S. forces in the region. That calculus absolutely changes if the United States ends up getting directly involved. You are talking about putting some significant U.S. assets at risk and drawing the United States much more deeply into a war that may not simply be about air assets. We might ultimately have to commit land forces if a dozen or 2 dozen American soldiers get killed in the region. And again, that is not anything that the American people are asking for. Donald Trump made a promise when he ran for office that he was going to get the United States out of wars, not get the United States into a new war in the Middle East, which the United States participation in the Israeli air campaign may end up doing.
Senator Chris Murphy, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, in the wake of today's meeting that the president had with the National Security Council, we'll be joined by a former National Security Council member who's been in the room many times with Iran on the agenda. That's ahead.
I'm very pleased to announce live.
Donald Trump just posted the truth, and it's about a flagpole. It's my great honor to announce that I'll be putting. He's trolling. It's my great honor to announce that I'll be putting up 2 beautiful flagpoles on both sides of the White House, north and south lawns. It is a gift from me of something which was always missing from this magnificent place. The digging and placement of the poles will begin at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Flags will be raised approximately at 11 a.m. These are the most magnificent poles made. They are tall, tapered, rust-proof, rope inside the pole, and of the highest quality. Hopefully, they will probably stand at both sides of the White House for many years to come. Bro's just sitting on his golden shitter as his actions are causing the entire world to collapse. And he's talking about flagpoles, dude. This sounds like bad spy code. No, this just sounds like perfectly Donald Trump. Yeah, he's signaling that he's going to drop Hiroshima and Nagasaki on Tehran. Okay, one at 7:30 a.m. and one at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's what he's time stamping. That's what the flagpoles represent. Or he's just literally talking about flagpoles because he's an insane man whose oldest. Yeah, the 2 flagpoles represent the 2 different nuclear facilities, one above ground or closer to above ground, and the other one, the Fordow one, and the different time codes, the different timestamps that he's going to attack Iran with the American bomber planes. Even when we talk about opinions on the Iranian diaspora, a trap I even sometimes fall into, the majority of Iranian Americans oppose military action against the country. This pro-invasion crowd is a vocal minority, but a minority nonetheless, just like those inside of Iran. Finding a majority of Iranian Americans oppose U.S. military action against Iran, 53% to 36%, with a plurality saying they strongly oppose U.S. attacks against Iran at 37%. So even the most reactionary element of Iranian society, Iranians in diaspora, my neighbors, okay, even amongst them, this kind of attitude is still the minority attitude, but a very loud minority attitude. So when you like see in the news someone going, I am Persian and I believe Tehran needs to go bye-bye so I can eat kubide and wear bikini to the beach. Like, that is not the common perspective of the rest of the Iranian diaspora, okay? I want to go to my grandfather's home and eat kubide. That's just like, again, not the majority position. Why do you say MF Joom, he's back? Are offliners just signaling to one another that they recognize each other in the chat? Is that what's going on? Do all Iranians call themselves Persian or just right-wing ones? I feel like it's I don't know. I mean, it's people that say they are Persian and have the lion flag are the Shah dick riders. I've been banned by Twitch for like a year. What the hell? For a year? What did you do? They're monarchists. PBD has a massive Pahlavi portrait in his living room. I know, we've seen it. It's dumber than just Pahlavi as well. There are, dude, it's so funny. It's not just him. It's literally him, I think, playing poker with like Elon Musk and Patrick Bet-David and Donald Trump and like Napoleon or something. It's even fucking dumber than you think. Like, that in and of itself is really fucking stupid. And I think Tupac as well. Einstein, Tupac, like, it is. Someone has to have the photo. It's gotta be. Someone's gotta have the fucking photo. It's so stupid. Early voters in New York City's Democratic primary question why Zohran Mamdani listed first on mayoral ballot. Wow. Me too. It must be the fucking, what is this? Oh, fuck. A subreddit from a bygone era. But yep, this is it. This is it. They're not playing poker. Oh my God. MLK. Okay. Milton Friedman. Pahlavi. I don't know what the fucking racer guy is. Patrick Bet-David. Tupac Shakur. Abraham Lincoln. JFK. Albert fucking Einstein. Ayrton Senna. F1 Brazilian driver. The irony is, there are two socialists in this image and one guy that at least Karl Marx was very fond of, Abraham Lincoln. Why are you guys saying three? Who's the third socialist? Oh, Tupac. Oh my God, I forgot. Oh my God, you're right. There are three socialists in this image. Oh my God. Oh my God, I fucking forgot. That's crazy. Yo, that is crazy. This is incredible. This is why I love Patrick Bet-David, even though he's a fucking moron. Inside the confused mind of Patrick Bet-David.